Hey readers. So one of the reasons I started this channel was to go back and look at some of the earliest publications of Dungeons and Dragons or just the RPG hobby in general. So I have some of the earliest issues of a zine called Alarums and Excursions, which is a product of the Amateur Press Association. So I'm going to go through some sort of historical background, as it were, talk about what that means. So we've got the Wikipedia entry here for Amateur Press Association open up. Amateur Press Association is a group of people who produced individual pages or zines that are sent to a central mailer for collation and distribution to all members of the group. They began in the late 19th century. Um, so, in particular interest to people like us, the first science fiction APA was the Fantasy Amateur Press Association, formed by a group of science fiction fans in 1937, and it continues to be active at least till 2025, if not current. And there's a comic APA started in '64, so on and so forth. Now, since we're concerned with Alarums and Excursions, that came out of, or at least those people came out of APA-L, which was a Los Angeles-based Amateur Press Association zine, which was largely science fiction, fantasy. And D&D comes out in '74, and suddenly there's a lot of D&D content in APA-L, which the editor of that did not like. Lee Gold, who founded Alarums and Excursions, took note of that and spun all that material off into her zine. Um, so this is a little better description. This is from Fanlore of what an APA is, or APAzine. It's a kind of fan publication in which all the material is generally letters, because a lot of it is correspondence. So, I mean, it's almost like an early message board where people are talking back and forth to each other, just very slow, month to month communication. Would be sent to a central person who would simply copy the entire packet in the cheapest possible way, mimeograph, spirit duplicating, xerography, offset printings, etc., etc. Sometimes each of the contributors send as many copies of their submission as there are subscribers to the central mailer zine, who then collates and mails these, does not have to take care of the printing. And basically, that's what these things were. They were essentially Xerox copies, um, collated together, sometimes with different color paper for different sections, and stapled and mailed out. And you would pay to get it, basically subscribing to it. And contributors would pay, and in some cases, if their material needed to be um, copied for them. Here's a Wikipedia entry for Alarums and Excursions. So it's Amateur Press Association, started in June 1975 with Lee Gold, and it ran for 593 issues, just recently coming to a close. In 1964, Bruce Bells of the Los Angeles Science Fiction Society, LSFS, began a weekly amateur press association named APA-L. In 1974, the publication of Dungeons & Dragons by TSR Incorporated, articles and comments about the new role-playing game began to fill the pages of APA-L, a development to which Pels objected. Lee Gold took note of this and started the new APA, Alarums Excursions, title taken from lesbian drama stage direction that moves soldiers across the stage, to focus entirely on role-playing games, which, and at least for the first year, is just probably just D&D. I think by '75 we maybe had chivalry and sorcery. I'm not sure. Attracting such material away from APL. The first issue appeared in June 1975. In addition to removing role-playing game discussion from APL, the initial aim of the publication was to prevent role-playing games from becoming so divergent that people from different cities could not participate in games together. It was such a hotbed of creativity, house ruling, etc., that was an issue, and of course that's what led to ultimately to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, to sort of bring all that stuff um, into one place under one authority, as it were. So, with all this in mind, we're going to look at Alarums and Excursions #1, bearing in mind that some of these conversations have already been going on from the previous, which I don't have access to, the previous APAzine from APA-L. So we're almost sort of stepping into a discussion in progress already. So here we have it. This is the cover. This was purchased directly from Lee Gold. All these were scanned, I think, in I'm not really sure. 2015, maybe. I'm not really sure. But unfortunately, the distribution of these has all come to an end. I have the first 40 issues, and I've got 41 as an actual print copy that I located. So my goal is just to go through these, and it may take a long time. So, I mean, these start pretty small, but they pick up steam fast, and they get to the point where they are, 60, 70 pages. This is an indication that there's always been humor in D&D from the very beginning. This looks good, dear. 3 bedrooms, sunken living room, subterranean parking, 2 torture chambers, and a month's supply of virgins guaranteed, all for a mere 65,000 gold pieces on a 1-year lease. A couple of dragons having a conversation here. Alarums and Excursions #1. Now, if you don't know what filking is, I didn't prepare any background for that. So you might want to look that up. Because the filking community, there's a lot of crossover with the early D&D and the filking community. So these were essentially humorous folk songs, and they would be included in these zines a lot. Sort of usually set to an existing song or something new. Obviously, based on some kind of fantasy material or science fiction material. This is Music to Loot Dungeons by Jack Harkness and Lee Gold. To There Is a Tavern in the Town. I'm not familiar with that song. There's a dungeon near the town, where wraiths and wizards stalk around, and there's treasure there. Go fight and get your share. Yes, there is treasure to be found. Chorus. Fare thee well, we must be going, for our spells we must be throwing, and we'll see you in a week if we come back at all. Adieu, adieu, kind friend, to thee. We're going off to D&D. Our swords and sacks and our armor all glow blue. We're off to fight the whole damn zoo. Downstairs to caverns we are bound, in armor plate or leather gowned. If the danger's clear, it's safer to turn where? Wolf, bear, tiger, pig, or even hound. Chorus again. There's golden jewels by the pound. Amazing monsters to be found, and the green slime pours down from dimension doors, dissolving you before you drowned. Chorus again. There's lots of action underground. You'll find strange potions to be downed. You can rob a tomb or fight an eldritch doom, or you might even win a crown. And it ends with the chorus. Jack also offers a new verse for Crottled Greeps, which is sung to the tune of Goober Peas. Trooping through a dungeon where it's black and cold, killing ghouls and bandits, eyes alert for gold, clerics heal our wounded, wizards throw their sleeps. It's almost as fun as eating Crottled Greeps. So here we have an APA miscellaneous comment from various Lers. And again, these are, conversations that have already been in progress, so we're not really going to have the context for most of this. Tom Digby, someone mentioned talking about things in D&D jargon and mentioned that Kimball Kinnison has about a 16 intelligence. So Kimball Kinnison is a character from the Lensman series of books. These attributes are obtained for a character by rolling 3 6-sided dice with a possible range of 3 to 18, a mean of 10.5, and a standard deviation of about 2.96. The Mensa cutoff is the 98th percentile and comes out to 16.5 intelligence. The normal curve has 1 person in 1,000, about 19.5 though, something you can never get with 3 dice. This may mean that there are a number of people in fandom whose intelligence is greater than can exist in the D&D world. You can look up Mensa if you don't know what that is. Mark Swanson, a question that keeps coming up is what charm person and hold person spells mean. One description is in a recent disty included a goblin king who, while charmed, was robbed of his crown and ordered to fight a couple of wraiths. In my dungeon, the magic user would have had a good chance of being ripped apart. A charmed character has been persuaded that you are her best friend. For your companions, at least, a conditional tolerance is extended. But we all know friends of friends we wouldn't be caught dead with. However, if Ordered to do something a friend wouldn't ask you to do, the character checks its saving throw again, with adjustments for charisma and how bad the situation was. It is hard to recharm such a character. Hold person persuades the held that he is enlisted in the French Foreign Legion. He obeys almost everything, but will try to desert. Ted Johnstone, in answer. You're making up your own rule interpretations. According to the rules, a charm spell causes the charmed entity to come completely under the influence of the magic user. Completely under the influence does not dodge around with nonsense like best friends or Foreign Legion enlistment. If you wish to hold to your heresy, I suggest you look up the definition of complete, or else admit that you're running your own version. This is interesting because this is like, yeah, discussions of rules as written and things like that. There was even back then. The game was only a year old. Nothing really changes. This is the same kind of stuff. Mark Swanson, Kazin, generally 5 hit dice. So I think they're referring to probably the Kazin, like Larry Niven's Kazinti. Um, but I'm not even sure. They are fast and can take a 1 die swipe at a human without high dexterity and not be exposed to return attack. They do die +1 damage when they hit. They are armor 5, owing to exoskeletal ribs, but take damage -2 from all but heavy weapons, battle axe, morning star, two-handed sword. Add +3 to saving throw for charm and hold person. Neutral. 25% speak common. Humans, dwarves, and hobbits cannot speak the hero's tongue. Bright orange fur. Half-ton of sentient carnivore. Cannot climb. Normally scream and leap when attacked, with the scream having a 50% chance of stunning anything of second level or less for 1 melee turn. Keen sense of smell and hearing, so difficult to surprise. Easily deceived by phantasmal forces if of something within their experience. A Medusa head wouldn't bother them, but a phantasmal superhero would. Will keep word once given. 15% chance have name, either 1 or 6 syllable, 1 or 6 hit dice. 1 hit die Kazin are apologetic, and only 1% of the population. Uh, half Kazin appear. I'm not sure if that's one. Yeah, 112. I don't know. 10% higher if named. 30% chance in layer. Type B treasure. Mark Swanson. I have scattered kryptonite throughout my dungeon. It only affects super characters whose prime requisite and last 3 characteristics average 13 plus. A superhero was a type in chainmail, so maybe that's what they're talking about. I think we'd better let our dwarf detect for traps, they say. Ah, yeah, it's a gem on a mousetrap table. All right, Mark Swanson's special abilities are for the use of first or second level characters in order to give them greater individuation. Local option in LA permits higher level characters who don't have special abilities draw for them too. Use dissimilarly colored cubes and select from the appropriate list. I have noticed since, obviously there were a lot of local groups back then, and the hobby spread very fast in colleges, that a lot of these house rules were localized. These people would get around in that area, whether they'd be congregating around a hobby shop, or they all went to school together, whatever the situation was. So when something like a crit table would be created, suddenly that would be the option everybody would be using. So the house rules would kind of spread, not nationally necessarily, but because this was all kind of person to person. Oops. Okay. List day. So we have basically what we would call now probably a D66 table. So you roll 2 6-siders, you get a result from 11 to 66. I won't read through all these, but if you're interested, you can screen cap this. Bonuses with weapons. You're a bad liar, but you speak the truth convincingly. So honest face, I guess. Locksmith, keen sense of smell, bump of direction, weather predictor, attractive to the opposite sex. Okay. Can smell evil or good. Good night vision. You taste horrible. Much will only bite you once. That's funny. So that list is for clerics and fighters and thieves. And this list is for clerics and magic users. So probably things that are more appropriate for a spellcaster. Yeah, things that affect your spell casting, give you bonuses on things. Could be a minstrel, chronic insomnia, Elves throw twice. They can use the appropriate quality depending on whether they are fighters or magic users. Half elves the same. Clerics with wisdom below 15 get one from each chart. The rest use list A only. Once you throw a quality, you must accept it. One or the other. Okay. Some gems. So we got a gold piece breakdown of different types of gems, all the way up to diamonds that would be worth that much gold. Types of jewelry. So people are already creating things to create some, variety and treasure. Carvings, goblets, bracelets, chessmen, clothing, books, whips. And here we have Lee Gold's, the editor. This is the first section of the APAzine. From now on, all my comments on D&D discussions in either APA-L or Alarums Excursions will appear in this scene. Hurch, Johnstone, and others. Possibly a magic user regenerates the use of 1 to 4 spell points per rest period, up to his top limit, of course. This would mean most magic users would have about 19 to 30 full spells that are disposable during a dungeon trip unless they took to resting more often than once an hour. So this is probably in response to it's very popular in the beginning for people. People were coming up with alternate spell systems. They didn't like the sort of memorization system, and they wanted spell points. They wanted, magic users, as they were called at the time, to have access to more spells, more variety. Switzer, thanks for printing some of the tables in APA-L. You might want to put them in A&E too. You are aware that characters with Caltech experience must start fan dungeon life as Neos, aren't you? Caltech's game is sufficiently different from D&D as written by its creators. It's really a different game. We call it Dungeons and Beavers, in reference to the Caltech mascot of the beaver. I have to admit being very turned off by the arrogant attitude of some of the techies I've met. Oh yes, we play D&D. We play it the way it should be played, not the way it was written in the official books. We don't accept experience points from other dungeons because they don't play the rules right, which I gather means that other dungeons play the rules, not the beaver rules. Interesting. Interesting. Are you divergence of thoughts and styles and methodology in 1975? For those unfamiliar with Dungeons and Beavers, the Celtic game allows lawful thieves, but does not allow any species other than humans, elves, hobbits, and dwarves except for reincarnated players. Non-humans are allowed to rise indefinitely, though at a slower rate than humans. A magic user gets one use of each spell per his level, so that a first level MU gets one chance to throw one sleep, and that's it. They also have a critical hit chart, 1 in 12 chance of receiving one, to allow characters to be killed off more easily than is provided for in the original rules. It adds up to the fact that D&D is a non-zero-sum game, while D&B is a zero-sum one. D&D players and dungeon masters alike get a kick from having a party battle for its life against monsters, survive by the skin of its teeth with only a few deaths at the most, and win an appropriate amount of loot. In D&B, the dungeon master is playing much more against the players. Switzer calls it a little more brutal, and I quite agree. So there's been killer dungeon masters, I guess, from the go. But both of them want a challenge, don't they? Both of them want, there's a lot of lethality in the game, even if they're playing it differently. Tedrin Cheryl came up with that unicorn centaur half-breed and asked me what it would be like. I decided that it wouldn't have a unicorn's antipathy to non-virgins and neutrals, but would, in view of the facts she told me about its birth and upbringing, have a similar antipathy to males and chaotic magic users. It had a unicorn's ability to perceive enemies, and because of its horn, also the ability to perceive poison, since unicorn horns change color when dipped in poison, by old medieval tradition. Cheryl accepted the limitations happily. If she hadn't, we would have discussed it till we'd found some she would accept. Digby, no standardly available plate armor is capable of being used by a mirror. Chain armor can be made for a wear individual at twice the cost of standard chain in order to pay for the hand tailoring to, I guess, allow for the changing of the body. Thoughts on Animals by Lee Gold. The rulebooks are somewhat unclear on animals. Book 2, page 4, refers only to small and large animal insects. A ring of mammal control affects 3 to 18 small or 1 to 8 large mammals, but a potion of animal control affects 3 to 18 small, 2 to 16 medium-sized, and 1 to 6 large animals, or 1 to 6 large animals. The following essays attempt to systematize hit points, armor class, and other attributes of animals. First of all, most animals are neutral, though they may be used as guards or food supplies, or for other purposes by lawful or chaotic people. Few animals have any treasure of their own. Only 5% of the normal size, small, medium, or large ones do. However, 10% small animals, 20% medium-sized, and 30% large animals are guarding Type A treasure for humans who may or may not be found nearby. Giant animals have a 15% chance of guarding treasure of their own, and a 40% chance of guarding treasure for magic users, Type F. If the latter, they will be giant-sized due to some spell, and Dispel Magic will reduce them to merely large. Like the lycanthropes, most animals are found in either packs or family packs. See Lycanthrope, Book 2, page 14, for age-sex distribution. And then there's a table. Examples of small would be spider, soup snakes, canaries. Medium would be a wolf, lion, baboon. Large, elephant, bull, ostrich. Giant, laurel. Giant animals in general. Wandering animals have a minimum of 4 hit points per die. This has to do with survival of the fittest. There are many possible types of animals in the dungeon. Everything from penguins to kangaroos to guinea pigs can be an interesting challenge to encounter. I'll have some specific examples on my own pages to follow, but here's a general list to whet your imagination. And then there's various birds, marsupials, reptiles, bugs, shellfish, carnivores listed. This was all probably pretty useful. I mean, this was, I suppose if you had a set of encyclopedias or something, but this wasn't just something you could just ask the internet to tell you. Herbivores, omnivores. Then we have the brass rat for MIT. Intelligent, 3rd level, but armor 2 because of its brass skin. Found in nest 20% of the time with Type C treasure. May be lawful, neutral, chaotic. Magpie likes to fly away with tiny objects, 1st level. In or near nest 20% of the time. Nest is 8 feet off the ground, 20% chance to have 1 to 6 gems, 10% chance 1 piece of jewelry, 5% chance for a ring. Hoop snakes, 1st level, poisonous. Roll with tail and mouth, and throw selves at face to bite. Move very quickly. Electric eels, 3rd or 4th level. Roll 2 cubes, 2 to 8 bite. 9 plus sends an electric charge into the person. Okay, it's interesting that they call D6s cubes. Treat is wand for saving throw. Does 1 to 4 points damage and paralyzes. Banderlog, small monkeys, each of whom has 1 to 6 lassos, with which he is 50% accurate. 1st level, swing from ceiling. They attempt to lasso people and take them away to their lair if it is near. They need 1 lasso to lift each 1,000 encumbrance, including the person's weight of approximately 1750. An edged weapon has a 50% chance of cutting the rope. If lasso misses, monkey will attempt to lasso again next time. If it's cut, he'll notice it a turn later and try to lasso again a turn after that. Part of body lassoed. 1 to 5 waist, 6 to 7 right or left leg, 8 to 9 right or left arm, 10 neck. Lassoed member will be raised 1/3 of the way to ceiling, dragging the rest of the body along and interfering with victim's concentration immensely. If neck is lassoed for 6 melee rounds, victim on rescue will need 2 to 8 turns to recover breath before taking any action. 30% Banderlog works with 1 to 3 great apes, layer 10% Type A. Tribbles is another thing I've missed. It didn't take long for things from anything. I mean, Star Trek, eventually Battlestar Galactica, comic books, like everything made its way into D&D. Tribbles, 1st level, always hungry, reproduce rapidly, doubling number for each meal's rations given. Charisma equivalent to charm person for each member of the party. Warn of approach of chaotics by making hostile sounds. Purr when stroked by lawful or neutral. Frequently, 20% found in conjunction with 1 to 12 Trekkies who will attach themselves to elves or other creatures with pointed ears. Trekkies are lawful and tend to bring ransom from devoted parents. They have protection from evil and charm person. Elephants, 5th to 7th level, depending on size. 20% are small, 20% large. Roll 2 cubes. 2 to 6 elephant gores with their tusks, 2 to 8 damage. 7 to 11, the elephant stomps with front feet, 2 to 12 damage. 12, elephant picks up in trunk and hurls 5 to 10 feet away, doing 2 to 16 damage. 50% chance of guarding Type A treasure. Mira Bull, 5th to 6th level, always charges directly ahead and turns around 180 degrees on perceiving a barrier. This is the kind of bull used in bullfights. Brass monkeys live in cold areas. Ha! 2nd to 3rd level, armor 2, 30% chance of guarding 1 to 3 potions. Laurus, or laurels, I can't tell. 7th level, semi-intelligent. Spears +1 against them. Golden beetle, 5th level, intoxicating smell, +2 effect, causes sleep. May lay eggs in victims. If so, victims are paralyzed. Unintelligent. More animals next distribution. Thoughts on keeping magic users within bounds by Lee Gold. Los Angeles Dungeons, having heard about how magic users have come to show a tendency to take over the game elsewhere, have adopted a number of methods to make sure it doesn't happen here. Number 1, limited armor. Magic users may wear only leather as cold steel found in both chain and plate tends to degauss spells. Unless their dexterity is 13 plus, they may not wear a shield and also throw spells every melee round. In order to keep them from getting shortchanged too much, suits of +1 and +2 leather armor may be found at times in dungeons. Anti-magic monsters. One of the more powerful of these is the typo, adapted from Willis's The Enchanted Duplicator. Typos interfere with spelling. Oh man, groan. Okay, 1 to 8 may appear either by themselves in a room with other monsters or wandering into a room in the middle of a fight. By confusing spell, a typo may 1. Dispel all magic, so no spells function. 2. Confuse certain spells so that sleep equals sheep, sleet, etc. B. The spelling bee allows only the most powerful magic user to cast a spell on any given round. Power is determined by adding the magic user's prime requisite 3 times magic user's level and 3 to 18 points obtained by throwing 3 cubes. Engineers, scientists, researchers, inventors, etc., who are anti-magic users. These resemble magic users and have much the same spells at their disposal. They are permitted only as dungeon monsters, not as characters. They are +2 resistant to magic. If bit by a magic weapon, they make a saving throw against spells, and if they achieve it, are hit only as by an ordinary weapon. Limitation on number of spells thrown per time period. Current local custom allows magic users half the sum of his intelligence and constitution a day in the dungeon. This may be modified to permit this to be increased in terms of the number of men he fights as. In any case, throwing spells uses up energy, which can be partially restored by frequent resting after fighting. A detection spell is a quarter spell point. A communication spell is a quarter spell point. A defensive spell is half a spell point. A locking spell is half a spell point. A movement spell is 1 full spell point. An attack spell is at least 1 full spell point and maybe several. Charm Hold is 1 spell point per individual affected. Sleep, 1 spell point per use. Phantasmal, 1 spell point per 5 rounds for each phantasm. Fireball and Lightning, 2 spell points, etc. We would be interested to know comments on these practices and our information on methods adopted toward the same end in other areas. Okay, so that's the first. That's Tantivy. That's Legold's contribution. We're going to end there. We're going to pick up next time. I still need to go through these because there was a habit, and I don't know if it's in this issue, but a lot of these people would include their address and phone number, and I want to redact those. I'm sure these people, they probably don't live there anymore, but it's just odd. I don't want to include any like real locations, so I'm gonna have to redact those before I continue anyway. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap here. Thanks for listening.